Right, one of the first plots I want to look at is the difference between the primary P starter fertiliser, microgranulus placement fertiliser, and no treatment. And we're looking at here two plants. These are Pioneer D06, a semi-dwarf variety. We chose this variety because it has pretty high vigour throughout the autumn period, and it has established very well. But being a semi-dwarf, it doesn't go silly. That was one of our objectives, was to drill it at 80 seed so that we could hopefully try and smother out the black grass with a low growing canopy that didn't run out of control. And of course in 2011 that was what we ended up in every situation. Autumn 2012, a complete contrast, and we never really got complete ground cover at any stage. However, what we're looking at here is the difference between the crop treated with primary P and the crop with no primary P applied to it. Two aspects really to look at. I mean, one of the concerns for many of you looking at the micro wing is that we're only cultivating the soil to between 3.5 and 4 inches deep using that machine. There's a general conception that we need to go a lot deeper in order to get very deep taproot with the oilseed rape. However, you can see that the taproot does go down a considerable distance, and also that this is typical of the machine. We don't disturb all the worm burrows in the upper part of the soil, and the root forms sort of multiple secondary taproots travelling off down all the worm burrows that are left intact, and this gives us really good ground or root to soil contact for take up of nutrients and moisture. But there's certainly no restriction, and we've never seen a restriction in the depth of rooting from that machine, even in heavy clay soils such as this one. It's quite difficult to get the roots out in one piece at the moment because the ground's quite tight and still damp, so the tips of the roots are tending to snap off at the moment. And so although this plant is smaller, I'm certainly not suggesting that we've got a restriction in root depth. This one's rooting down the holes as well, but it's not as big, and that is generally what we see with the starter, with the focus on phosphate delivery to the plant rather than nitrogen delivery to the plant. Nitrogen does get the plant away well in the autumn, but tends to produce quite a bit of lush leafy soft growth, which is quite susceptible to disease, more susceptible to frost, whereas the higher phosphate level we're putting into the crop here tends to produce a harder growth, which is able to withstand both frost and disease better. But overall we get a very good establishment from using that product. We've had our yield maps back from last year. If you remember back to the site last year, we established rape using various drill types, both with legs deep and legs shallow, and with the micro wing, and in fact with the Horse CO4 based on the farm here. Focus of using that was minimal ground disturbance, so we didn't bring up black grass, and the yield maps show absolutely no difference in the level of yield, extremely consistent in oilseed rape right across the field. So whether it was deep cultivated, shallow cultivated, and whatever drill type was used, there was absolutely no difference in the oilseed rape yield. It is fair to say that we didn't establish any rape under poor condition last year, so they all grew away well from the beginning, but certainly very deep cultivation gave us no additional yield at the end of the day. The primary P is applied at varying rates depending on the drill used and the type of cultivation used. We aim to get about 20 kilos a hectare on if we were doing a complete overall treatment, but when we're putting it in through something like the micro wing, and in this particular situation we're at a spacing of 600 millimeters between legs, we can go down to 10 kilos per hectare applied, which effectively puts 20 kilos a hectare down the leg with the seed. And with strip till drills we might be 15 kilos In a dry warm season we might be 10 to 15. We've certainly seen this year that under these very wet conditions we've suffered this autumn, poor oxygen levels within the soil, cold temperatures and plants struggling to grow, that actually 20 kilos was probably where we want to be. But it's certainly indicating that there's no default rate for use of these fertilisers. They need to be adjusted according to the conditions both in the field and for the season.